I am slowly coming out of what we call jet lag, which feels like aligning your whole body in one time zone on one place in the earth. I gave a talk on Tuesday. I was here on Tuesday, and I'm a little less jet lagged today than I was on Tuesday, and part of me kind of wants to review a little bit of what I said on Tuesday, because part of me wasn't here for it. So I thought, well, we'll just, besides, these koans, that's the great thing about these koans, because I wanted to do do a closing this week of the Hidden Lamp. So I began Tuesday with section 1, clapping her hands and laughing, which of course I just love that. Clapping her hands and laughing. Let's just take that up as a koan to live and turn and be turned with for the rest of our lives. Stories of seeking and awakening, which we're all doing, which then comes forward in The Old Woman of Mount Wu, China, 9th century. And then what I want to do is turn again to a koan I've done before. Anne brought it up in one of her talks. In her talk is Ling Zhao's Helping, which is China, 8th century. So they're both from China. I want to interconnect them a little bit and a little bit of travelogue. Because I've been on pilgrimage, you've been on pilgrimage, but I just have been on pilgrimage there, and you've been on pilgrimage here. The part that I want to bring forward about the old woman of Mount Wu is the story is old woman sitting on the earth, on the road. So there's a solidness to this story. She's on the road. These young monks keep coming by and saying to her, do you know the way to Mount Wu? One might say, do you know the way to enlightenment? Do you know how to live? Do you know what awakening is? And she says to them, he's a good monk. And then she says to them, each one, she meets each one completely and says, right straight ahead. Right straight ahead. And then off they go. And she says, he's a good monk, but off he goes, just like all the others. Zhao Zhou comes and checks her out, comes back and says she said the exact same thing to him. Right straight ahead. So in this story, I think it's so funny that we think there's something straight. Like you're just going to get it and right straight ahead. It's like it teases you. There is no right straight ahead. I mean, whatever the next moment is, it's the next moment. And you sort of think, our logical mind thinks, well, like 1 + 1 = 2, and it does equal that. But in the realm of practice, it's just like take the next step. Keep putting your feet on the earth. Here we are. We're all on this dusty road together. We're all seeking together. We're all human beings trying to wake up. Just right straight ahead. Stay with your deepest intention. Feel your feet. Be here. The poem from the commentary that I like a lot. I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and found that life was duty. I acted, and behold, duty was joy. Life, duty, precepts, right straight ahead. Duty, be the best human being you can be in each moment. And the more we do it, it's joy, because it means we're alive. And what else are we going to do with this one and precious life? And there is a sense of duty and responsibility wherever you go. I was saying to somebody this morning, Travel's wonderful, but it's also work. And you just, I mean, we know this. You just take yourself wherever you go, and practice is always there. You're going to go off to Australia and meet all kinds of wonderful new things, and it'll still be Marianne. But it won't be Marianne, because it'll be right straight ahead, falling down and getting up and learning and meeting amazing things. And then you come home, quote, coming and going, no coming and going. But you know, it really is all scenery. And it's wonderful. What an amazing, privileged life to be able to go off and do these kind of adventures. But it's still, how do I meet this moment? How do I be kind? What is it to be a true human being? Who are you really? Who am I really? What is this all about? Clapping your hands and laughing on top of it. Don't take yourself too seriously. Okay, so that's my little review before I go into, and the commentary from her teacher, the woman who did the commentary, said something from her teacher which I liked a lot. He would say, only go straight, don't know. Don't know, wide open. Don't know. Just straight, just this, just this, just this. And then he says, for 10,000 years, no stop. It's like forever, forever. 10,000 years, no stop. It's Dogen's continuous practice. 10,000 steps, 100 million billion steps. How many steps do you take in this lifetime? Don't miss them. So now what I want to bring forward, well, let me read about Ling Shao. One day, Layman Pang and his daughter. Well, let me back up a little bit. Layman Pang, the Pang family, you know, the Pang family. Most of the koans, and in our tradition, it's often priests, teachers, who are usually priests, who are doing these koans and enacting these koans. But the Pang family was lay. It's really important in our history, because that's what's happening now. Is some of us will spend time in a monastery. Some people might spend a lifetime in a monastery. But we're all lay people. I'm a lay priest. We're all lay people. So what is this? How do we enact this ancient way right here in the midst of this very ordinary life? We don't have the support. I suppose you could say that's good news or bad news, where they ring the bell at 4 o'clock in the morning. And we all get up together and we all march down, right straight ahead down to the Zendo, and you do this, and then you do this, and then you do that, and the bells ring, and the bonk, 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 and it's a very beautiful and actually important way to train as part of our tradition. Longer retreats are really important. You get things in your body. But then most of us, whether you go to Tassajara for 1 practice period, 6 practice periods, whether you do 1 long retreat, we're just going to find ourselves right back in the grocery store line, you know? We're going to find ourselves just dealing with the person next to us, or our families, or just life. So Layman Pang, they are really held up as models of lay practice that have been passed down to us. And in fact, I was going to say, when Erica and I were studying together for lay entrustment, the study is a little different, what you do with lay entrustment, because lay entrustment is, you're not a priest, you're a lay person. And Layman Pang and his family and his koans is part of what you study, because they're such models for us. Layman Pang, his wife, his daughter, his son. Joan Sutherland, who does the commentary, reminds us that there was a revolution in Chan Zen underway in the times that they lived, that was going from intellectual understanding, just study it, you'll get it, to relationships and encounters and meetings and conversation, which is what we continue to this day, which is what you all were doing this past month, which is what I was doing in New Zealand and in Fiji, just meeting, this moment, being met. She says they lived modestly. They were deeply committed to the way and to each other. They were full of humor and insight. Now let's notice that again. They were full of humor and insight and were unabashedly eccentric. I think that's very good news for all of us. It's like, phew! I don't know about you, but the older I get, the more eccentric. I think I was always eccentric, but I think I was way better at kind of pretending and cloaking it. Now it's like, okay, whatever. So it's also important that the Pang family not only were lay, but that they included women. It included the daughter, Ling Zhao, as a teacher, and the wife, whose name we don't know, which is interesting in itself, isn't it? Son worked in the fields growing the family's food. And Ling Zhao, her name meant spirit shining, and in many ways was the most luminous in the family, and she and her father were inseparable. They supported the family by making and selling bamboo utensils. Simple. It's really wonderful. You go to, I should have brought it, in New Zealand, there's a plant they call a flax plant, but it's not a flax plant, it's a lily plant. But it's the same thing that cultures, it seems to me, do everywhere, is it's one of those really strong, resilient plants that they know how to strip and pound and weave, and amazing weavings, amazing human beings, what we do. The Maori in New Zealand really revere that plant because it was an important ground of their culture. Okay, so now they're off on pilgrimage together. So we're right back to pilgrimage, but this one is a little different. The first one, it's all on the ground. This one, I had a different perspective on this one after my travels that I want to bring. One day, Layman Pang and his daughter Ling Zhao were out selling bamboo baskets. They were of the earth, simple. Coming down off a bridge, now I want to come back to that. Coming down off a bridge, the layman stumbled and fell. When Ling Zhao saw this, she ran to her father's side and threw herself to the ground. "What are you doing?" cried the layman. "What are you doing?" "I saw you fall, so I'm helping," replied Ling Zhao. "Luckily, no one was looking," remarked the layman. So, well, one, duty. Ling Zhao was joyfully devoted to her father, to her family, to helping. No hesitation. But what I want to just spend a minute talking about is bridges. New Zealand, the land in New Zealand is amazing. Probably you've all heard that in one way or another, and it's true. And it's not only just beautiful, it to me is very powerful land. Sometimes you stay, it's like when I go, every piece of land is that way, but there are like places in the Southwest where I go and I just think, I can feel this all the way through. And New Zealand is very much like that. Makes you pay attention. Made me really curious about Maori culture, the original, I mean before, we don't know who came before and before, but the original indigenous Maori culture that very much reveres the land and that everything's interconnected and everything is alive. So there's lots of places you can go for hikes in New Zealand, and we did a lot. That's mostly what we did, was we went hiking. There's lots of rivers. There's lots of water. There's lots of hills and mountains. Now now, if you have a river and a gully or a gulch, you have to get from one side to the other. And there are bridges. But they're not bridges like when I usually read this story. I think, oh, you just go over this bridge. I'm guessing the kind of bridges that I was going over, that we were all going over, is the kind of bridges that we're talking about here in ancient China. Is there those long, narrow, drawstring bridges, and the creek and the ground is really far down. More than once we would be on a trail and I'd hear somebody saying, I'll go just this far, but I'm not going over that bridge. Because those are the bridges, you've probably done them, but these are long and frequent. First of all, they say no more than 7 people should be on this bridge. You think, wonder what happens when there's 8. And then you get on it, and because they're made for just one person to go over, and they are completely suspension, of course, the minute you start walking or you're on it with somebody else, they start to sway. Find your feet. Right straight ahead. Yeah. Yeah. So I want to build that into this story. It said, one of the signs said, I think this is what it said, is that if you walk in the normal way, 1 foot in front of the other, it makes the bridge swing more. And of course, then there are always some really helpful people who get on the bridge who thinks it's funny to make it swing more. But I think what it said is that if you walk maybe more like a duck, then it doesn't swing. Maybe you'll meet these in Australia too. You'll remember. I have no idea maybe it's dry. I bet it's drier there.
We're going to be in the Red Center and camping. I don't know that we'll have a lot of water.
I bet you won't have a lot of water, but you'll have something else. Now, the amazing thing about New Zealand, which we had amazing sky and clouds, but New Zealand, it's because it's all island culture. I'll just share this as an aside. There were from the very beginning no large mammals, and there are no snakes. And there's nothing dangerous there, which is just amazing in itself in terms of being in welcoming land. And kind of strange that the biggest thing that everybody's into are little kiwis that are about this big, and they're endangered. And I have to say that New Zealand does seem to be way, way, way ahead of us in terms of consciousness about the environment and ecological responsibility. So this bridge, it says here, Layman Pang was coming off a bridge. So I think he was probably walking over the bridge. His daughter was behind him, and she saw him fall, which we're not on solid ground anymore. I thought metaphorically, if you think about bridges are probably, we might be able to say, those, if we were going to talk psychologically or spiritually, those places where we don't have the steady ground underneath us, like in the first koan. The monks are all just 1 foot in front of the other, and they're going from here and from there. But when you come to a bridge, and when you're in the middle of a bridge, you're much more aware of uncertainty. And you're much more aware of not really knowing anything, and that the ground is not stable underneath you. So I would imagine, I'm making this up, when she saw him fall, it's scary being up on those bridges. Probably not as much for them because they did it all the time, but he stumbled right in a kind of precarious place. And she loved him very, very deeply. And without hesitation. That's what's so beautiful about this, because I don't think I said, is that this is the first koan in chapter 4. I saw you fall down, so I am helping the path of practice. So what is it, that immediate response that sees someone has fallen, and without hesitation, you fall to the ground with them? You don't stand up above and say, so what's the matter, buddy? You don't pull back and wonder who that fool is who just fell. There's something so pure and so beautiful in that response of just, let me come down here exactly where you are beside you. So now I'm going to bring forward something that I probably never thought I would do. I'm going to talk about Tucker Carlson. Just briefly, really briefly, because I did pay a little bit of attention to politics and also really realize how much we affect the world, that we really are a world power, and how much our culture and capitalism and commercialism and our movies and everything that's happening here is everyone has their own ground and their own culture, but I want to take responsibility with all of you over and over for this. We're culturally Americans. So I have never listened to Tucker Carlson. I've only read, maybe as you have, little bits and snippets about how he says these terrible things and he's incited and been the source of this cultural divide, and then he suddenly gets fired. And then they put out the email about the email that really upset everybody when all of that other stuff that's been going on for years and didn't upset anybody. So what is it about this one that was, anyway, we can all conjecture all of that, right? But the part that I want to bring forward is, I mean, what he said in this email, if you read it, is really awful. Let's not pretend there's not awful things being said. But then he said, after he said, I really wanted to hurt this person, I really wanted to kill them, and then he said, somewhere deep in my brain, an alarm went off. This isn't good for me. Have you read this? Yeah. And this is what the news hasn't picked up. Everybody's focused, as well they should be, I suppose, on all the awful things he said, and this is one more last awful thing. But I think this is like, he finally fell down on the ground. He said, somewhere deep in my brain an alarm went off. This isn't good for me, this kind of thinking and being. I'm becoming something I don't want to be. Wow! This blah, blah, blah that he was maligning is a human being.
Oh my God.
Much as I despise what he says and does, much as I'm sure I'd hate him personally if I knew him, I shouldn't gloat over his suffering. I should be bothered by it. I should remember that somewhere somebody probably loves this kid and would be crushed if he was killed. If I don't care about these things, if I reduce people to their politics, how am I any better than he is?
What?
Now, to me, I mean, it's not like I don't have impulses like Tucker Carlson. I mean, we're human, for goodness sakes. It's just we have practice and we have precepts and we have vows and ways of living. But this is like one of those turning moments. There's turning words here. Not just for him, but for everybody. It was like that moment where you fall down on the ground and realize that that which you made other is you, or that somebody loves this person the way you love somebody else. I think that's so beautiful.
Epiphany.
And part of, I just want to bring it forward because Bruce and I both went, yeah. It's like, and nobody that I've seen has brought that part forward.
That made me, I read it,
Yeah.
it made me wonder, why'd they fire him when he said no?
That's exactly what I thought, is why was this the firing moment? This is the moment where you'd say, whoa, something's happening here. How can we help each other?
Well, because he's shining a light on the meanness, and they don't want that.
Yeah. Well, we know all of that. And that brings the koan of Ling Xiao's helping into the present moment, of just falling down onto the ground, remembering over and over. part of what happened when we came home is we came home jet lagged, and the hot water heater had broken in our basement, and the whole basement was flooded. So it's been a little stressful, and Bruce and I had a little fight, and then I thought, just fall down on the ground. Just fall down on the ground, not just beside him, because he's the one that's been down there mostly bailing and but beside myself too. How do we fall down on the ground beside ourselves, wherever we are? It's like, oh, a human being somewhere, somebody loves this person. Can it be you? Just to bring some compassion and kindness to yourself. Not to mention the next person, which is continuous practice. We're right back to right straight ahead. Just fall down in the mud, be on the bridge, it's shaking. We don't know. We don't know where we are or who we are or what we're doing. Or if we did, the minute we take the next step on the bridge, it's going to shake and wobble, and we're going to look down and it's going to be full of awe and wonder. I mean, those rivers are amazing. And I'll just throw in, we even got to do we got to be in places where The Hobbit was filmed. So we actually, we stayed in an Airbnb that had a television, and we started rewatching the Hobbits, and it does feel to me like that we're all of the above. We're all just hobbits on pilgrimage, and we're all really good-hearted, and we can help everybody because we're kind of innocent and dumb and pure-hearted, but then there's also elves and dwarfs and evil, and it's all us. So how do we just keep falling down on the ground? Compassion, this is Joan Sutherland. Compassion isn't a commodity we deliver, but a commitment to help liberate the intimacy already inherent in any situation. The willingness to go beyond self, which is a risk. It means the risk, moment after moment. I don't know. I don't know. To offer ourselves to the situation, to ourselves, to each other, to the world, to not turn away, to stay in the felt sense of the body. Oh, and then the last part is, I'm glad nobody was looking.
Mm-hmm.
Notice when you're looking. Who's this? What is it? A superego or whatever? I don't know what it is, but it's been doing this commentary all the time about everything. Mm-hmm. Pure practice body doesn't have that commentary. It may later do a little commentary and think about things and reflect on things, and that's important. But pure practice body is just responsive. It's just help. Here I am. Don't know. And one last thing. They're funny. They're playing with each other, even in the midst of, he fell. That was dangerous. Could have been. They love each other. Someday he's going to fall and die, or she's going to, who knows? He did fall. And, we're all going to fall and die. But how do we play in it? And how do we clap our hands and dance and just like, there's a bridge, okay, right straight ahead, one step after another. And you know what? You go over that bridge and it's amazing because there's a whole other world that's the same world, but it's on the other side of that bridge. And then you go and see the blue pools. But because it's been raining, the blue pools aren't blue, they're gray. And then you think, well, I came to New Zealand and I didn't get the blue pools, but I got these amazing gray pools. And I got this walk in the rain all the way. And now I get to go back and go over that bridge again with all of you and the whole world. And it's just like, it's just wonder. It's just wonder and profound humility, really. Okay, so that's what I have to say, which is probably too much, but you have a few minutes. Let's